What do you get when you mix a violet-eyed movie goddess, more diamonds than the crown jewels, and a life where scandal was just part of breakfast? You get Elizabeth Taylor, Hollywood's most glamorous troublemaker. Did she really find a 500-year-old royal pearl in her dog's mouth? Was her necklace worth more than the yacht she wore it on? And why did she sometimes mix fakes with the real thing just to mess with jewelers? This is a story about a woman who turned luxury into legend and gossip into gold. Let's dive into 50 scandalous facts about Elizabeth Taylor that will leave you asking, was she the Queen of Hollywood or the Queen of Chaos? But every legend has a beginning, and Taylor's love affair with jewels didn't start with diamonds the size of ice cubes. It began with something far smaller, yet no less precious in her eyes. Imagine a 12-year-old Liz. She stepped into a chic Beverly Hills boutique, used her allowance money, and emerged clutching a dainty gold-plated posy brooch, her first jewel. She pressed it into her mother's hand. That tender moment would ignite a lifetime devotion to adornment. It was a modest start, but Liz's taste and the price tags would grow with her fame. Let's start with the heavyweight. The Taylor Burton Diamond, a 69.42 carat pear-shaped diamond, cut by Harry Winston. The diamond was first auctioned in 1969. Richard Burton had his heart and wallet set on it, but lost the initial bid to Cartier, who allegedly represented Aristotle Onassis, the Greek shipping tycoon and Jacqueline Kennedy's new husband. Burton was livid. He instructed his lawyers to approach Cartier that night and offer them $1.1 million. The deal? Cartier got to display it in New York for a weekend before shipping it to Taylor. Over 6,000 people lined up each day just to catch a glimpse. When Elizabeth Taylor tried on the Taylor Burton diamond as a ring, "It hurt my hand," she said, deadpan. She quickly had it reset into a necklace, crafted to sit just above her collarbone, resting over the site of her tracheotomy scar from a 1960s medical emergency. The 69.42 carat Taylor Burton diamond came with weighty rules. Insured by Lloyd's of London, the policy dictated she could only wear it publicly 30 days a year. The rest of the time, it was to remain locked in a vault. And on those rare occasions it emerged, armed guards shadowed its every move. Taylor would later have a replica made of the diamond that cost $2,800. In 1969, Elizabeth debuted the necklace at Princess Grace's 40th birthday ball in Monaco. Cameras flashed. Guests froze. Even Princess Grace, elegant and composed, couldn't look away. Later, Elizabeth would smirk. People stare. So what? She liked the chaos. The more scandalous the gem, the better the story. After her second divorce from Burton in 1978, Taylor sold the diamond to Henry Lambert, a jeweler from New York, for a figure believed to be between $3 to $5 million. Part of the proceeds from the sale funded the construction of a hospital in Botswana. Lambert sold the Taylor Burton diamond in December 1979 to Robert Muad of the jewelers Muad. Unlike the Taylor Burton's grand entrances, the Krupp diamond, now known as the Elizabeth Taylor diamond, a 33.19 carat diamond, was her everyday companion. "It's my favorite," she said often. Burton bought it in 1968 from the estate of Vera Krupp, a German baroness and former actress who married into the Krupp industrial dynasty. Yes, that Krupp, makers of Nazi Germany's armaments. This diamond is a Type 2A diamond, which are the most chemically pure types of diamonds and have exceptional transparency. Before it was the Elizabeth Taylor diamond, the gem had a far grittier life. In 1959, it was stolen from actress Vera Krupp's Nevada ranch in a brazen heist. The thieves vanished, but the FBI didn't let the trail go cold. After a tense cross-country chase, the diamond was recovered. From FBI files to flashing cameras, the diamond's journey was just beginning, and Elizabeth Taylor was ready to make it shine like never before. At the height of her fame, Taylor was known to strut into events bejeweled in more than $10 million worth of diamonds, emeralds, and rubies. In the 1950s and 60s, most American women wore modest strands of pearls or delicate gold chains. Elizabeth showed up wearing a 69.42-carat pear-shaped diamond, the Taylor Burton diamond, staring down photographers with unapologetic heat. She wore tiaras to dinner parties in Switzerland. She draped emeralds over a simple cashmere sweater. She once wore her Krupp diamond ring while cooking chili at home. That confidence, the audacity of not asking permission to wear magnificence, has inspired generations. In an era when women were told to be smaller, quieter, daintier, more ladylike, Elizabeth Taylor bit back with a phrase that would come to define her unapologetic appetite for life: "Big girls need big diamonds." What most people miss is that the quote wasn't just a quip about jewelry. It was a rebuke of shame culture, of being told to apologize for her body, her fame, her desires. A diplomat once tried to needle her at a gala, commenting that her diamonds were too large for taste. Taylor's famous retort? "They're just the right size for me." She was acutely aware of how her jewels affected the room, how they made men nervous and women whisper. She once told a journalist, "I love to be surrounded by beauty, but I like people to know I own it." After years of being typecast as just a pretty face, she used her jewelry as a blazing spotlight, reclaiming the narrative, commanding space. Elizabeth took that audacity with her everywhere, even through airport security. When flying through Heathrow or LAX, most celebrities do the polite thing: dress down, stay low, keep valuables stowed. Elizabeth Taylor? She arrived like a Baroque empress on a runway. Her diamond rings, her famous emerald brooches, and those towering earrings? Never removed. Not even when customs officials asked her to. One incident, widely cited by journalists covering her travels in the 1970s, involved a fine paid in cash at the airport, simply because she refused to unclasp a set of diamond necklaces. She reportedly said, "You can take my money, darling, but not my diamonds." Royal in spirit, if not by title, Elizabeth's lovers often played catch-up with their offerings. But Mike Todd, he crowned her, literally. Mike Todd, her third husband, and the only one she claimed never to have wanted to divorce, was no minimalist in his affections. Among the lavish gifts he showered on her was an antique diamond tiara. It was a crown that demanded to be seen. Taylor wore it to the 1957 Academy Awards, where her appearance was a visual coup. In a sea of sleek Hollywood coiffures, she glittered like a stolen treasure from a European royal vault. When Christie's toured her collection decades later, the tiara was one of the most celebrated stops. But the tiara was just the beginning. Mike Todd wasn't done dazzling her. Next came rubies. Producer Mike Todd was a smitten new husband when he gifted his pregnant wife with a suite of Cartier diamond and Burmese ruby jewelry. The setting was in a villa in the French Riviera, where the Todds were vacationing. Elizabeth happened to be swimming when Todd joined her in the pool, jewels in hand. According to My Love Affair with Jewelry, she had longed for rubies since she was a teenager. She even told her mother, "One day I'll own a ruby." And there it was, a suite from Cartier, gifted by a man who worshipped her. Mike Todd set the bar with rubies and diamonds, but Elizabeth's next great love would raise the stakes, turning every fight into a gemstone, every kiss into a Bulgari receipt. For Elizabeth and Richard, love was war, and jewels were the truce treaties. While filming Cleopatra in the early days of their romance, Burton was rumored to have gifted Taylor a gold and diamond Serpenti snake watch from Italian jeweler Bulgari. Years later, the actor famously quipped, "I introduced Liz to beer. She introduced me to Bulgari." The Bulgari boutique on Rome's Via Condotti became the third character in the Elizabeth Taylor-Richard Burton affair. As Taylor played the Egyptian queen by day, she wandered the marble-floored halls of Bulgari at night. Instead of an engagement ring, Burton presented Taylor with a Bulgari emerald brooch. On the wedding day, she pinned it to her dress, a glittering declaration that this union was going to be anything but ordinary. Elizabeth's Bulgari emerald pendant brooch was a geological masterpiece. When it sold for $6.58 million, it set a record for an emerald jewel at auction. The emerald necklace was a gift for the wedding. The stunning earrings, bracelet, and ring followed after that. Burton, never shy with a quip, famously said, "The only word Elizabeth knows in Italian is Bulgari." This year later, Richard Burton, still intoxicated by both his leading lady and his own sense of theatrical timing, celebrated the premiere of The Night of the Iguana with a gift, a Jean Schlumberger for Tiffany dolphin clip. This was no cutesy trinket. Schlumberger, a master of sculptural jewelry, crafted the dolphin in shimmering gold, diamonds, and precious stones. Decades later, the clip would return to the spotlight, fetching a jaw-dropping $1.202 million at Christie's. Of course, not all of Burton's jewelry gifts were six-figure masterpieces. Sometimes they came with a side of sarcasm. In 1970, at their chalet in Gstaad, Richard Burton bet Elizabeth Taylor that if she could take 10 points off him at ping pong, he'd buy her a diamond ring. And she did. True to the wager, and with a wicked sense of humor, Burton went into town and deliberately found the smallest diamonds he could, returning with a trio that became known as the Ping Pong Diamond Rings. When they came to auction in December 2011, the set realized $134,500. That was just Richard in mischief mode. But when sentiment struck, he turned to Cartier and history for a birthday gift unlike any other. The Taj Mahal ruby and gold chain. It was a hell of a romantic 40th birthday gift. A heart-shaped diamond from the 17th century, once given by Shah Jahan to his wife Mumtaz-e-Mahal, later the inspiration for India's Taj Mahal. But decades later, the gem's reputation got a crack in it. When the pendant was auctioned in 2011, a buyer questioned its age and description, sparking a post-sale dispute. The controversy wasn't about its beauty. It was about whether the narrative matched the facts. Christie's eventually canceled the sale, and the Taj Mahal became not just a jewel, but a cautionary tale about how legends can outshine laboratory reports. In 1972, Elizabeth Taylor turned 40. For most actresses, it meant fading scripts and soft lighting. But Elizabeth turned everything else into a spectacle. To mark the milestone, Richard Burton gifted her a necklace that was nothing short of operatic, a Bulgari Sautoir, anchored by a 52.72-carat sugar-loaf Cabochon sapphire, surrounded by tiers of dazzling diamonds. Designed in Rome, it fused the bold geometry of the 1970s with the opulence of Renaissance grandeur. And Elizabeth wore it like a queen. She debuted the piece at the Nixon White House during a 1972 state dinner, honoring Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti. The necklace was part of a larger collection Burton was building for her at Bulgari, a love story told in precious stones. After Burton's death in 1984, Elizabeth rarely wore the sapphire sautoir again. She never sold it. Some gifts, she told a confidant, aren't for the public. They're part of your soul. It remained locked away for decades, but when it finally surfaced at the landmark 2011 Christie's auction, the world gasped. The sautoir sold for nearly $5.9 million to a private collector. Not long after, Burton set his sights on a pearl with a royal past of its own. And this time, there was no questioning its provenance. He purchased the pearl at the Sotheby's auction for $37,000. He gave it to his wife, Elizabeth Taylor, as a Valentine's Day gift during their first marriage. Rather than keep La Peregrina in its original simple setting, Taylor went to Cartier and commissioned a new, dramatic necklace worthy of both the pearl's royal past and her larger-than-life image. The result was a spectacular chain of pearls, diamonds, and rubies, opulent enough to rival any crown jewel. She wore it like a queen. La Peregrina, the most historic pearl in the world, once gracing the necks of Queen Mary I of England and later Spanish royalty, including Margaret of Austria and Elizabeth of France. The 16th century pearl had been the subject of royal portraits, dowries, and diplomatic deals. Most collectors hide their masterpieces in vaults, guarding them like dragons over treasure. Taylor? She sent the legendary La Peregrina pearl on public display at the Smithsonian for the Allure of Pearls exhibition. And yet, for all its royal history, La Peregrina's most infamous chapter wouldn't unfold in a palace, but in a suite at Caesar's Palace. It had vanished in a hotel suite in Las Vegas. Taylor searched under sofas and behind curtains, her heart racing. "It's gone," she thought. "I've lost history." Then she heard the soft crunch of pearl against enamel. Her dog was gnawing on it like it was a squeaky toy from Harrods. Taylor continues, "I just casually opened the puppy's mouth, and inside his mouth was the most perfect pearl in the world. It was, thank God, not scratched." Notably, she never blamed the dog. "Even the dog has good taste," she laughed later. In December 2011, the pearl sold for a record price of more than $11 million. As wild as the La Peregrina story was, it wasn't the only jewel tangled in chaos. Elizabeth's emeralds, especially those born from a scandalous romance in Rome. The filming of Cleopatra nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox, but Elizabeth Taylor walked away with something far more memorable than a paycheck. A love affair with Richard Burton, a worldwide scandal, and enough jewelry. On set, amid the golden columns of Cinecittà Studios in Rome, Taylor famously quipped, "These jewels weigh more than my costumes." She wasn't joking. The film's lavish costume design, paired with Taylor's personal gems, yes, she wore her own pieces during filming. If on set she blurred fantasy and reality, in real life she blurred real and fake. Taylor played a dangerous game with jewelers. She'd mingle diamond earrings from Harry Winston with dime store rhinestones. One story from her entourage tells of a night at dinner when she passed around a massive ring and asked everyone at the table, real or fake? It turned out to be glass. But the cut, the gleam, the drama, all pure Liz. And here's the thing, even her fake jewelry had stories. Many were commissioned copies of her originals, made to wear when she traveled or visited less secure locations. But she wore them with the same pride, the same poise. "If I can't have fun with it," she once said, "what's the point of having it?" Elizabeth Taylor once said, "I've never thought of jewelry as trophies. I'm here to take care of it and to love it, for we are only temporary custodians of beauty." To her, each gem was a soul, and like all souls, they had moods, secrets, and voices. That's why the notion of insuring them felt, to her, almost sacrilegious. They were emotional relics gifted by husbands, lovers, and ghosts of her past. Once, when asked why she didn't worry about losing them, she shrugged. "They're part of me. If I lose them, I lose a bit of my soul, but I won't be any less alive." That sentiment seems scandalous today, when even celebrities lock up their jewels in Swiss vaults and wear replicas on the red carpet. But Taylor? She wore hers to dinner, to parties, in the bathtub, sometimes even while gardening. And their storage? Just as delightfully unbothered. Imagine opening a closet in Elizabeth Taylor's house. Not a vault, not a guarded safe, but a closet. Inside, shoeboxes. Inside the shoeboxes, Cartier, Bulgari, Van Cleef and Arpels, wrapped not in velvet or silk, but in ordinary white tissue paper. Taylor's assistants have confirmed it. She stored some of her most valuable jewels this way. A ring worth 6 figures, nestled beside a stray earring. A tiara under an old cashmere shawl. Her jewelry was her companions, her playthings. She wanted them close, accessible. She didn't want to visit her jewelry behind glass. She wanted to wear it. She didn't live in fear of theft or damage. She lived in trust. And style. And style, for Elizabeth, never clocked out. Not even at bedtime. Elizabeth Taylor's version of bedtime wasn't exactly minimalist. While most people keep a glass of water on their nightstand, she kept diamonds on her body. Not for show, not even for comfort, but because, as she once explained, "I liked to wake up to beauty." One of her favorites to sleep in? The diamond-studded Van Cleef & Arpels daisy necklace, gifted by Burton. "It felt like sleeping in flowers," she said. When Elizabeth Taylor was battling congestive heart failure in the 2000s, friends reported that she never abandoned her beauty rituals. Even in hospital gowns, her wrists were often studded with bracelets, her fingers with rings. She called her jewelry her companions through battles, objects that had outlasted husbands, scandals, and even the headlines. In the 90s, when she was undergoing back surgeries and battling pneumonia, she sometimes requested to be wheeled into rooms wearing her best diamonds, her perfume, white diamonds of course, and perfectly applied lipstick. She wasn't just wearing white diamonds, she built it. When the fragrance launched in 1991, it revolutionized the celebrity perfume industry, turning a side project into a billion-dollar empire. By 2018, lifetime sales had been estimated at $1.5 billion, and in 2011 alone, the scent pulled in about $75 million in retail. Beginning that same year, a portion of every bottle sold helped fund the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Remarkably, white diamonds still glitters on store shelves worldwide, one of the rare celebrity fragrances to thrive decades after its debut. White diamonds may have cemented her name in fragrance history, but for Elizabeth, true treasures were gems. And in 1987, she set her sights on a jewel that once belonged to royalty and a friend. At Sotheby's Geneva sale of the Duchess of Windsor's jewels, Elizabeth Taylor bought the Diamond Prince of Wales Feathers brooch for $565,000, a circa 1935 piece from Wallis Simpson's collection, her old friend. The design is 3 diamond plumes with baguette spines, gathered by a tiny coronet in platinum and gold. When Taylor's estate went to Christie's in 2011, the feathers took flight again, selling for nearly $1,314,000 and fusing 2 legends, Windsor and Hollywood, into one jewel. But while her collection dazzled the world, the real treasure was the backstory behind each piece. And in 2002, she finally let us peek inside the vault of her heart and published her book, When My Love Affair with Jewelry. Readers expected a coffee table indulgence. What they got was a confessional. She chronicled the story of the La Peregrina pearl, which had belonged to Queen Mary I of England, and which Taylor nearly lost in her dog's mouth at Caesar's Palace. She shared how the Cartier diamond tiara from Mike Todd made her feel like royalty when she wasn't born one. Every jewel had a story, but Taylor knew that sometimes stories gain power not by being kept, but by being shared. In a move as unexpected as it was unprecedented, Taylor became one of the first celebrities to auction part of her personal jewelry collection while still alive. It wasn't because she was bored or broke. Proceeds from that auction flowed directly into the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, which she had founded in 1991, at a time when few stars dared speak the word AIDS, let alone fight for those suffering. She was selling her personal history, stone by stone, to fund the lives of others. She had proven that jewels could do more than dazzle. They could make a difference. And in the end, they did just that. Elizabeth Taylor didn't believe in fairy tale endings. She believed in legacy. So when she passed in 2011, she left behind more than just glittering heirlooms. She left behind a plan. In her will, she directed that her remaining jewelry be auctioned to support the very cause she championed in life, her AIDS Foundation. And it was no modest offering. Her jewelry collection, presented by Christie's in New York, shattered records. The Elizabeth Taylor diamond, formerly Krupp, sold for $8.8 million. This was the highest-earning personal jewelry collection sale in history for over a decade. And then, her final twist. She delayed her own funeral by 15 minutes. On purpose. A request written in her will. "I want to be late to my own funeral," she said. And she was. Because, of course she was. She may have left the world without her glittering companions, but the jewels? They kept talking. Especially one piece. Ancient, regal, and louder than words. Imagine an artifact resurrected from a faded pharaoh's treasure, and Elizabeth wore it. This Van Cleef & Arpels Art Deco bracelet, once owned by King Farouk of Egypt, the Playboy monarch who was deposed in 1952 after a reign more famous for foie gras and roulette wheels than governance. The bracelet is bold, brazen, platinum laced with rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, each gem glowing like the eye of a deity in the Egyptian sun. Etched into it were hieroglyph-inspired symbols: an ox, a falcon, a sphinx. When the bracelet was sold at the Collection of Elizabeth Taylor auction at Christie's, New York in December 2011, an event that shattered records and drew global attention, it fetched $842,500, more than double its high estimate. Among Taylor's lesser-known, but deeply haunting, pieces was a small collection of Art Nouveau jewelry featuring dragonflies and butterflies. Unlike her more famous headline-making diamonds, these pieces rarely appeared in public, and when Christie's auctioned her collection in 2011, many of these pieces were grouped together under the Art Nouveau Jewels section. One particularly exquisite dragonfly brooch, crafted in the early 1900s, fetched more than $68,500, significantly surpassing its estimate. While the world tracked Taylor's romances and jewels like a fever chart, the most personal pieces were hiding in plain sight, wrapped around her wrist. Among Elizabeth Taylor's many dazzling jewels, this charm bracelet was one of the most personal pieces in the entire auction. It carried 17 charms, each one carefully chosen, each one steeped in memory. The most touching? A heart-shaped charm inscribed with Elizabeth and Mike, capturing a love story cut short but never erased. Charms engraved with her children's names: Michael, Christopher, Liza, and Maria, showing that even at the height of her fame, her most enduring roles were those of mother. Some charms were scratched with wear. Others looked almost childlike. But that was the point. Tokens from a life lived full tilt. Not museum pieces, but living artifacts. And in this bracelet, you feel everything. And just when you thought her jewelry couldn't be more personal, enter Eddie Fisher, yellow diamonds, and a scandal with a price tag. Eddie Fisher, her fourth husband, presented her with a lavish suite of yellow diamonds from Bulgari to celebrate her 30th birthday. The stones were extraordinary, sun-warm in tone, vibrant against her skin, and wildly rare. But the real scandal? After their marriage imploded under the weight of that very affair, Fisher reportedly sent Elizabeth the bill for those diamonds. Taylor's response was inaction. She kept the jewels, wore them publicly, and never paid the bill. Diamonds may have marked her birthdays, but lion heads marked her legacy. Because when Elizabeth Taylor became a grandmother, she didn't tone it down, she turned it up. A grandmother at 38? Cue the lion heads. In 1971, Richard Burton, who never gave small, commissioned Van Cleef & Arpels to design a custom necklace to commemorate Elizabeth's new title, Grandmother. The resulting piece, later dubbed the Granny Necklace, was anything but demure. It was fierce, dramatic, and laced with roaring lion head motifs inspired by Venetian door knockers. Each lion's mouth clenching a dangling emerald, and the necklace itself was built of interlocking gold links that clinked like castanets when she moved. She adored it. But why lions? Burton once joked that Elizabeth was half kitten, half lioness, and the necklace played on that image. Softly maternal, fiercely regal. Later, the necklace sold at Christie's for nearly $200,000. Taylor once said, "Nobody ever owns anything this beautiful. We are only the guardians." That single line is perhaps the truest key to her philosophy. In an industry obsessed with ownership, she saw herself as a custodian of beauty, holding these pieces in trust until they moved on to their next chapter. Each gem carried a whisper of mischief, a wink at tradition, and the shimmer of a woman who refused to play small. If you think Liz was the only one turning jewelry into legend, think again. Our channel is full of tiaras with curses, crowns with secrets, and jewels that changed history. Ready for your next obsession? Let's keep the glitter going.